Welcome to Junior Hockey Advisor. This is going to be a crazy afternoon and evening. I am so excited to get rolling and to get moving with this whole process with you. The only problem is I've had my reading glasses on and off so much working on this stuff today. It's going to be very interesting to see how blurry I get. So if I look like I'm squinting a little bit, it's probably because I don't normally wear a lot of glasses. So it's a great day in Rochester, New York, actually Pittsford, New York. We're ready to get rolling. We have got 6 sessions tonight, 6. We're going to start off with talking U10, 11, 12 hockey. We're going to move into, I believe after that, we're going into 13s, we're going to U10 through U13 first. Then we're going to go into U14, 15, and 16. Then we're going to talk about U16, 18 versus prep hockey a little bit. Then we're going to get into girls hockey. We're going to spend a little time with girls hockey today and talk about the whole concept of girls hockey and what are the differences and what makes it unique and what are the similarities of what the hockey's like at the girls side. We're going to talk ACHA club hockey at 7 o'clock tonight, and then we're going to finish at 8 o'clock, a special time. We normally go at 9. We're going to start at 8 o'clock tonight, and we're going to get into our normal Ask Me Anything question and answer period. I hope that you're going to enjoy today and get a lot of information out of this and get some good content out of the whole process. It's unbelievable to see the numbers coming in already. It's great to see the comments coming in. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm hoping that this attracts a new audience. I hope this is people that we normally don't get. But who am I? I'm Jeff Colson. Once again, I'm in Pittsford, New York, originally from Michigan. I graduated at the University of Michigan. That's where I did my undergraduate at. I am first and foremost a father of 2, both hockey players. But I've been doing this for 35 years. I've been an NCAA coach. I've been a general manager for junior program. I've owned 3 different junior teams, 16s, 18s. I've been coaching for 35 years, master certified coach. Ran one of the largest, first of all, on the girls side, I had the largest girls tournament in the world for a few years and ended up selling that. Not too shabby on that side. And also got involved with being a president of an organization for years, fairly large organization, and have also pretty much been involved with all different levels of hockey. So what we do here is we talk about the path and the progression paths. We talk about planning and preparing and understanding the system. All roads, if you ascend to college hockey or pro hockey, go through junior hockey. So we call it the Junior Hockey Advisor because we really do advise on the process. I am not a family advisor. I don't represent players. I'm not an agent. What I do is I put educational processes together and programs together. So what you're experiencing right now is what I do. I spend a lot of time talking to people on the phone or texting or emailing with people that are in unique situations or they're coming across hockey situations for the first time and they're trying to go through the path. As a father, I've had 2. I've had a daughter that played through, never played boys hockey except in the spring, but all played girls hockey all the way through, went to play NCAA hockey, won a national championship, and she's just finishing up at Penn State Law School this year. She'll be an attorney like her mother in the next few months, hopefully, and we move on to another chapter in her life. And I still have my youngest who is playing his last year at juniors in the North American Hockey League, and hopefully he gets a chance to progress with all this pandemic stuff. We just want to see the season come into an end sometime soon. It's been a very, very unique situation for all of us involved in hockey. So what we're doing first is we're going to talk U10 through U13 and especially talk about the path and the ascension path. One thing that you'll find right now, I'm going to be very, very blunt. I have no agenda other than to give you information. Anybody that's watched any of my videos on YouTube, on our Junior Hockey Advisor webpage, will tell you that it's fact-based, it's statistic-based, and it's just about progressive paths and about different directions. My advice is not on a hunch. My advice is not because I'm being paid by somebody, nor do I have an allegiance to anybody. Hockey Canada, USA Hockey, the USHL, the NHL. I'm not beholden to anybody to give a direction. So some of the things I say are not politically correct. Some of the things I say are not going to be in the playbook for Hockey Canada or USA Hockey. And some of the things are that because people are programmed to think one way, are going to raise the hair on the back of your neck from time to time. First thing that I'll tell you is that I'm a firm believer in utilizing hockey outside of the normal structure of hockey, which means that's spring hockey, that's tournaments, that's summer hockey. I'm a firm believer that that's really where the game is progresses the fastest. I believe in skill development. I've done thousands and thousands of on-ice private lessons over the years as a teacher and as an owner of a private lesson company. Skill development is huge, but that's where the word development stops in my book. I don't believe the word development is used properly. I think it's overused in many different ways. People that call themselves development experts, development teams, development coaches, it's just an overused word, and I really think that the word I like to use is the path of ascension. The ability to move up the path, move up the ladder, and get to the next level. That's what this is all about. So one of the first arguments that comes up at the U10, U12, U13 level when you're playing at this level is this too early to start talking about this? Why in the heck would this guy be talking about this stuff at this point? So we're going to get to that right away. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to tackle. But I want to say hi to who's out there and who's on board, and we're going to see who's out there. If anybody, I already know I got a little ticker. I got this little device. I don't know if I can show it to you on the screen, but I actually have a little editor thing that pops up in the corner here on the bottom. It actually shows me how many people are live on the session, and then it allows me to actually do the production of the show. I can change scenes, add music, and all kinds of stuff just off of my fingertips. So no, I don't have 4 people, 2 people. I don't even have 1 person standing outside the lights of the studio here. It's me, and that's all there is to it. So anyway, here we go. Dang, it looks like a good session, but I'm coaching. Will there be a recorded version? Of course there's going to be a recorded version. Everything we do gets archived on Junior Hockey Advisor, the page, and on YouTube at Junior Hockey Advisor, so you can definitely jump on there. Look at this. Saskatchewan's on. Kent's on. That's good to see. We've got Grand Forks on. We've got Ted on from Alberta. We've got KL, if I'm not pronouncing that right, you let me know, in Atlanta. Just had a big win at 10U championship today. Good job. Tell your son. Well, you got to put your son's name on there. I can't say good work on that unless I know who the son is there, KL. Emily's on from Victor, which is just down the road. Emily, you may have heard me barnstorming the house a little earlier. I was using Victor as a turning point. I'm a pilot for fun and was up in the air a little bit earlier today. James Weaver, one of the best billet families in not only all of Texas, but all of North America, is on. And hopefully his wife's on with him too in Odessa, Texas. A diehard Odessa Jackalopes fan. Probably has one of the best Jackalopes jersey collections around. Austin, Texas on. We've got Patrick on in Edmonton. We've got Dennis on. I don't know where Dennis is from. Boy, we're really represented well up in Canada. Saskatchewan, northern BC with Candy. And then Boston, Mass is in with the Jessry. So we've got a growing audience. Throw your comments on if your questions. I'll try to scroll through questions as we go. But once again, let's get back to this original question. Why in the world would we be talking about the path at U10, U11, U12, U13? Well, I'm going to give you a little insight on something. I'm going to pull something up for you. And this is just my starting point. First of all, everybody's path is different. Your path is your path. And what I mean by that is your family makes choices. You make a choice on which direction you're going to go. That's not dictated by Hockey Canada. It's not dictated by USA Hockey, nor should it be dictated by the league you play in. Okay? And why I say that and why I think it's so important for you to understand is I truly believe that part of our problem with this whole thing is that we've got we've got organizations that are in this for the different purposes than what you may be in this for. Okay? The USA Hockey's job is to grow their organization. Period. Well, they also have a function which is to put a national team together for the Olympics and the World Juniors and the World Championships and things like that. That's part of it. But their job is not your development. Their job is to keep you in the game and happy. So if you've watched through the process with USA Hockey, and by gosh, they do a lot of good things. USA Hockey and Hockey Canada both do. They've turned the corner in the last 10 years on making the game safer from predators, from on-ice issues, to locker rooms. They've done such a great job of improving our game, and that's the rules, the officiating. There's so many good things to say about USA Hockey. One of the things that I will say that I don't agree with USA Hockey on, or Hockey Canada, is relax. Just let the process take you down the road. Relax, okay? You'll see, if you follow any of the leaders of USA Hockey, you'll see them retweet things and go, yeah, see that? You know, and they'll give you the gotchas like, that proves it. Anytime there's somebody that has success later in hockey, and that the late bloomer category, first of all, late bloomers don't exist. If you think that that's a strategy, that you're in the wrong world of reality. You cannot, late bloomers, even the people that are considered late bloomers, and we'll talk about how to define late bloomers in a second, but that's 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000. That's not your strategy. Your strategy should be what gets you to the next level, depending on what level you're trying to get to. But saying, oh, hey, relax, you got plenty of time, is usually not a sound strategy for anything. First of all, what I just noticed is I don't have my name up on the screen. I'll try to fix it as we go along. I think most of you know who I am, but if you don't, the last name is Kolcon. You can look me up on Elite Prospects or whatever you need later if you're new to this. But that point of late bloomers is important to me. People will say, well, Michael Jordan, got cut as a sophomore. Michael Jordan was at a very competitive school, and he was highly skilled, and so were every other player on the team. Michael Jordan grew 6 inches and then played on the team when he grew. Scottie Pippen, okay, same thing. He was a college JUCO manager of his team. Grew 8 inches and became phenomenal because of the height. He was already skilled. These guys were already skilled. Dennis Rodman, true athlete. His athleticism was off the charts. He grew like 12 inches. Okay, you cannot put those guys in the same category. You can be a late grower or you can be a late worker. But late bloomer, anytime you see Herschel Walker was a late bloomer in bobsledding, no. Herschel Walker was a world-class track athlete, if you don't know who he was. He was a world-class college and football player. I'm not sure if Herschel Walker's in the Hall of Fame. I believe he should be. Dallas, played for Minnesota. Unbelievable. It might be before some of you or your time in sports, but if not, and you know the name Herschel Walker, he also was an Olympian. And he got, just a large, fast, pure athlete, and he decided to start getting involved in bobsled. And so he moved over to the bobsled team. He wasn't a late bloomer in bobsled. He was a late worker. He decided to start something later in life, relatively late in life, in his 20s, and he is successful at it. So you can be a great athlete that decides to start focusing on hockey later, but that's not a late bloomer. That's you decide to put work into it later. So first thing I want to put off the table is if you believe that late blooming or relax, you got plenty of time as a strategy, what I say probably is not going to go very far with you. It probably won't resonate. And that's okay. That's okay. Because I do believe at U10, believe me, pull up the World Junior rosters. Go to, if you haven't been to Elite Prospects, and if you listen to me a lot, these things are things that I'm passionate about, and you've heard me talk about this before. But pull up Elite Prospects, eliteprospects.com. In fact, I'll do it too. Let's see if I can pull this up right here. Okay, just give me a second. I can get to Elite Prospects here, and I will. Elite Prospects, right here we go. Here's Elite Prospects. So let's get on Elite Prospects, and let's take and put in, just for giggles, let's put in, I'm going to put in World Juniors. Okay, so there's World Juniors, and I'm going to pull up the roster of, I'll grab the U.S. team. Let's grab USA right there. And I just want you to look at something here. I'm going to do it by stats. I'm going to grab their top scorer. And here's Trevor. And let's just go down and look at Trevor's background. And I want you to look right here because this is important. Okay, this is the year 2020 and 21. 10 years ago, he played in the Brick Tournament. And then a couple years later, he played at the Pee Wee. The Brick Tournament, 9-year-olds. Okay? Whoops, sorry. That's a little pop-up. So the reason I bring this up is because this is a high-level player that was high-level at the time. So just let's just play this out a little bit more. Now, this is 9-year-olds, and let's just pull up that Brick Invitational Tournament. So this is the Brick Tournament, and here's the roster of the Brick players. And so here's the year, 2010, 2011, and right off the bat, most people are going to recognize that name. That's Cole Caulfield. Why is that important? Well, it might not be important to you, but a national team member, and if you look at him, University of Wisconsin, but, you know, what did he do? He played in the Brick Tournament. And I can go through this list, and I've already done it before with the USA Hockey team. About 50% of the players on that national team were on a Brick team in Alberta back when they were 9 years old. Okay, that's significant to me. And if you combine the Brick and the Quebec tournament, there's a significant amount of players that have played at that high level. Now, why is that important? Why should that mean anything to you, to me, or anybody else? And I'm going to try to get back to my normal screen here. Bear with me. It might take me a second here because I've got to get my cursor back. Once again, don't hate me for not having this down pat. Okay, there we go. So why does that matter? Why does it matter that, you know, all these high-level players played in the Brick Tournament? Well, that's because already competitive hockey starts getting put in place at 9 years old. And if anybody knows anything about the Brick Tournament, what happens with the Brick? Well, there's 3, 4, 5 events that are pre-tournaments to that Brick team, which means for months the Brick team is working together to play in the Brick Tournament. It's a summer tournament. It's played in Edmonton. It's played in a mall. And if you've ever been up to it, it's a blast, and it's a great experience. But you're playing with a lot of players that are going to go on and play in the NHL. That's just the fact with this tournament. It produces a lot of high-end players. Well, once again, I don't want anybody to think that you have to play in the Brick. But if you don't think that players are starting to be earmarked at 8, 9 years old, because these kids are trying out for these Brick teams. These kids are being selected and invited to tryouts for these Brick teams at a very young age, just like the Quebec teams a few years later for U12 players. Now, the reason why that's important is because you have to understand that if you're going to be in this game and the goal is to ascend, that's what you're up against. You're playing against a deck that's stacked from 8 years old and 9 years old of players trying to ascend. Now, if you're one of those players, great. If you're not, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. It doesn't mean you can't play Division I. It doesn't mean you can't go on and have a great career of playing pro hockey. What it means is you're going to have to work extra hard, and you're going to have to find the other paths and other avenues around that. To say, oh, wait till you're 14, wait till you're 15, wait till you're 16, and even having the development model that USA Hockey has built, what I find ironic about it is all the players on this year's team are a product of what is supposedly the ADM, the development model that has been designed by USA Hockey. Now, if you're new to this and you don't know the story of USA Hockey and the development model, grab my video. It's on YouTube. It's on the Facebook page, and that is the USA Hockey, all about USA Hockey and the development. You can see it's the USA Hockey video. I don't have the title on the top of my head, but it says right in the title, USA Hockey. And you can find out why the development model was designed, why it came about so fast, immediately. And it's I'll give you a little teaser to this. It's all because of the KHL. Yes, the KHL, Russian Professional Hockey, created the ADM in the United States. You don't believe me? Ask anybody where that $9 million of development money that comes from the NHL was before it came, that the USA Hockey gets from the NHL. Where was that $9 million before USA Hockey got it? It was all over in Europe, and it was all over in the Russian country and into their satellite countries in their development process. That money came back into USA Hockey because USA Hockey didn't have a development plan and have a development model, and the NHL said, look, we're willing to support you. We'll bring this money back because we're not going to support the KHL in their development path. So we're going to take all that money out and all of our money that we're putting into players over there, and we're going to put it over here. So it's a fascinating story. If you don't know where all that money is going, all this is information you can pull up. All the records for USA Hockey are public. You can go on, you can search for these documents and look and see yourself exactly where the money comes from, and how it's allocated, and things that you probably wouldn't even think about. The USHL, the North American Hockey League, are subsidized by USA Hockey. I should say they're subsidized by the NHL via USA Hockey. So there's money that comes in this way. It's still an amateur status, and everything's done above board. But it's fascinating to know this. So let's get back down to brass tacks. 3 areas. For a player, U10, U11, U12, U13, I break it down into 3 Ps: positioning, planning, and preparing. So what does that mean? What is positioning, what is planning, and what is preparing? Positioning is putting yourself in the right spot in your regular season and in your off season. Now, if you're in the Canadian market, if you're Detroit, maybe Buffalo, Rochester, Toronto market, you probably get what the importance of spring hockey is and positioning in spring hockey is, because if you're playing in those markets, spring hockey teams that go up into the Toronto tournaments at U10, U11, U12 is extremely popular. It's extremely fun. And it's a great tool to network. It's a great tool to ascend up the ladder, getting to meet other coaches, getting to find out what the other markets are like, comparing yourself to others, and just having fun. Less coaching, more playing, more creativity. A lot of great things come out of being positioned in the spring. But positioning in the regular season is important too. Now, some markets you can't really do anything. You play in your market, you play on the team, you only have one choice. Maybe you can choose between the AA program and the AAA or the Tier 2 or the Tier 1. Maybe you've got a couple of options, or maybe you don't. Some of the bigger markets, if you're in Buffalo, Rochester, you got plenty of options. You're in Boston, you got plenty of options. You're in Colorado and LA now, you've got plenty of options. Even when you get into the Florida markets, you're starting to get plenty of options. So it's less and less than it used to be, as far as you not having options to play for teams, that you actually have different teams you can play for. But that positioning of being on the right team, being in the right league, and playing in the right spring programs is extremely important. So positioning is all about getting in a program. Now, how do you know what program to jump into? How do you know what team to play for? How do you know what's going to do you any good? Well, first of all, it's getting to know the programs. It's when I was the president of the organization, we would have a spring town hall meeting once a year, and we would have everybody in our organization come in, and we would lay out what we're trying to do as an organization. We would lay out our goals for what our Tier 1 travel teams were trying to do, what our girls program, what our goals were for the program, and what our Tier 2 goals were. And I think we had a goal, like we wanted every team in the top 50 of My Hockey rankings for our Tier 1 program. Tier 2 program had a different set of goals, but basically we had a tiered level of goals and aspirations for our program, and we let people know in the spring before they tried out, here's what we're looking to try to accomplish in our organization. Then each of our coaches had a table for question and answers around the room. Now, not every organization does this. Now, some do it better. Some do it much better than we did. Some not so good. But as a parent, I want to know what my options are, and I want to know about that organization and that team. So getting that ability to find out about the team is important. But here's the biggest part about that. And here's the key, in my opinion. Just one guy's opinion on this is I want to know, as a league and as a coach, are they worried about keeping me in the organization, or are they worried about me being able to ascend up into competitive hockey to the right level on the right team? Now, I've been around a lot of fantastic coaches that their only drawback, in my opinion, just world-class coaches, is was about ego and retention of players because they wanted to keep their group of players together so they could have success, either because they had a son on the team or just because they wanted to keep their powerhouse team. Okay, I get it, but you needed to get it too, and you have to understand that too, and understand that there's people out there like that. Okay, then there's the other guy out there that knows you may be a 1 or 2 year player with their program, and then you're going to move on and progress, and you're going to be able to ascend to whatever level that you can play at. I just remember when I first got involved in the upstate hockey, I was very fortunate to work with Don Kernan out of Syracuse. Don was the North American Hockey League coach early on when Rochester, the franchise that I ended up buying from him, was up and coming in the area. Long time. He's worked with a lot of NHL players, worked with a lot of pros. His daughter is still an owner of an NCDC team, Utica. Great hockey person, very involved with USA Hockey. But what was very interesting about him is players flowed through his team. And what I mean by that is even the younger kids, they had a process of teaching everybody up the ranks. But if a player was just too good to be in that program, there was no problem. There was no fight to try to keep that player in the program. There was a flow. And his attitude is really kind of what set me on track of trying to worry less when I was the president of the organization, worry less about retaining the top end and worry more about growing a whole organization by bringing a lot more players in at the bottom end. And if players left to go to other areas, good for them. Good for them that we're doing something that got them the ability to open up the door to somewhere else. So that's the first thing about the positioning, is to make sure if you choose a team, that team buys in that you may be there 1 year, you may be there 2 years, you may be there 3 years. Maybe you start there with squirts and you leave as a peewee, but that you're not fighting the town hall, you're not fighting the city hall, if I'm saying that right, to try to stay in an organization, or that they're fighting to hold you in the organization. You don't want that. You don't need that. So positioning is important. I'm going to get back to the spring tournaments on position. The other part is the planning part. And the planning part is twofold. Short-term planning in hockey, starting at 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, your biggest planning needs to get put into place at the holidays. Right after the holidays, we're still at the end of the planning phase. But as you know, this is when everybody starts getting, set the pandemic aside. In a normal year, now this year it's still there, but in a normal year, you get into the February and Marches, everybody's antsy. Playoffs are coming up, the season's coming to an end, you're racing with a lot of things, and then all of a sudden this ugly little word comes out called tryouts. And tryouts get thrown into the mix, and all of a sudden, where are you going? Who are you trying out with? What's going on here? Who's staying? Who's going? Who's loyal to the coach? Who's not loyal to the coach? What rumors are starting? It becomes a very, very interesting period of time, and that's why it's so important to put your planning in before it gets crazy. What do you want as a family? So how do you figure out what you want? We're going to get to that in a second, but planning is extremely important. Planning at that holiday period moving forward is also, when I say holiday, it's somewhere between Thanksgiving and New Year's is when the planning should start for the next season, in my opinion. I just see the successful kids that come up through, their families have a plan put in place. And by the way, let's talk about family in a section here. We're going to talk a little bit about sacrifice, and sacrifice is huge in hockey. It's huge. You're going to have to sacrifice. Here's the main things you sacrifice. If you don't know these already, and you're young to the game or you're newer to the game, you're going to sacrifice time. You're going to sacrifice money. You're going to sacrifice social opportunities, and you're going to sacrifice family events, just family in general. Okay, and that sacrifice is coming from mom and dad. That sacrifice is from the player and from the siblings involved, and maybe even to another level. If grandma and grandpa or uncles are involved, you never know. Every family dynamic is different on how much extended family gets involved in the hockey process. But you're going to have to sacrifice, and if you are involved in hockey, in the planning phase of this, it has to be put into play early to understand that there's going to be sacrifices coming forward if you're going to move and ascend up the ladder in hockey. So I know I'm trying to cover a lot, but the planning part of it is extremely important. Let's get on to the preparing part. Now, the preparing part is probably the easiest and probably the part that most people have no problem understanding. And that preparing part is, preparing the player. That means that's the skating and development. That's the off-ice development. That's the skills, the power skating, all the things that are normal. What's the most important part of of preparing a player? It's skating. Don't let anybody put any other thought process in your mind. If you're not a good skater, you're not going to progress. So when people think, where do you start? What's the most important thing? If you're going to invest time, family time, if you're going to invest money, if you're going to take away from your social time and your family time, sacrifice for skating. That could be, it doesn't mean you got to go out and get a power skating coach, which is a good idea. There's nothing wrong with hiring a power skating coach. But the biggest part of this is understanding that you're going to have to put time into learning to skate properly and skate very, very well to progress. The sacrifice might be the family puts in a backyard rink. The sacrifice might mean you have to drive an hour to get to a good power skating instructor. I'm not saying what the sacrifice is. I'm not saying how to get to your ability to prepare a player. But at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, skating is everything. Skating is the name of the game. It doesn't matter if you have an advisor, that you've lined up that's giving you advice. It doesn't matter if you've got a tryout opportunity with a great team. All that's going to come to a screeching halt very soon if you're not a top echelon skater at your level. So the first thing I would say right off the bat is, on the preparation side, just a ton of time on the ice. Yes, I believe in skill development as far as having a power skating instructor or a really good skill instructor that understands skating and understands. Now, a little aside, if your skating instructor doesn't know the difference between a European stride and a North American stride, a Canadian stride, and doesn't understand some of the really big names in the industry and what they do, like the diamond effect that some teach and can't walk you through the different strides, you might want to move on and progress to a more advanced person that can actually break down and tell you the different strides that are being taught, or can tell somebody right away, that person was taught by Lori Stram. That person was taught by a European instructor. That person was taught by Townsend up in Toronto. You can tell where a stride comes from very, very quickly if you know what you're doing, and you need somebody that can break that down and do it right. That's an aside. You get that. That's a free tip. You run with that all you want. But once again, positioning, preparation, preparing your player, planning. Okay, so let's get back and talk a little bit about the spring and summer tournaments. Anybody that I can throw you, I'm very, very fortunate that because of the age of my kids, I got a peripheral view of the Hughes family in the Toronto market when they were playing spring and summer hockey at the same time, and sometimes with one of my kids. Don't know the Hughes family except for how you doing when you walk by them in the rink, and scouting or watching him for different things that I've done over the years. And when I'm talking about that, you've got three brothers that are phenomenal. If you don't know the story of the Hughes brothers, it's a Florida family. Dad's a former pro, got involved with the NHL at Toronto on the coaching level. So the family moved up to the Toronto market. And from there, the family, I believe now resides in Michigan. If not, they spent a lot of time in Michigan because all three boys went through the National Development Program in Michigan. Two of them are playing in the NHL right now. One is on the Star, and the youngest, some say maybe as good or better than the other two brothers. So we'll see as that progresses. But they all progressed through, an intense dose of spring and summer hockey, along with a lot of other great hockey players. Toronto's fascinating because there's tournaments every weekend. There are some kids that live in the Toronto market that will play in two different tournaments in the weekend. They'll be playing in a 3-on-3 over here, and they'll play in a Canland for fun with their buddies from their middle school over at this rink, and they're still practicing with their regular season team once a week or twice a week. That's their AAA travel team. But here's the consensus of what I've taken off of years of going up there. And to let you know, not only with my kids, but for a while I had 20, 22, sometimes 24 spring teams that we ran as an organization, as a company. My for-profit company, ran spring teams. Now, our niche was not always running elite teams. We would run an elite team here and there. We pretty much stayed in the high tier 2 level player to low end tier 1 level player, and we had that little soft spot and a real good comfort zone with those players. Gave them a place to play in tournaments, and really enjoyed, and they were able to thrive at a certain bandwidth that we fit in well. We never tried to be that company that only dealt with elite athletes. However, if you talk to the elite athletes up that do the spring tournaments at age 10, 11, and 12, many of the families say that they play more for getting to the spring season and enjoying playing on their spring team more than the arduous, long regular season they play with for their travel team. And so the reason why I say it's important to understand that, it's important to understand that, a lot of people really live to play for these spring teams. Why? Well, a lot of times the spring team's coached by an icon. I can tell you that over the years, my son was coached by some really big NHL names because he played on a spring team out of the Toronto market. And at one time we had five NHL parents on the team, including Wendell Clark's was part of the coaching staff. If you're in the Toronto market, and once again, sorry for you that are younger, that aren't in your late 40s or 50s, and you don't recognize the name Wendell Clark. Wendell Clark was a legend, captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and probably was instilled the embodiment of what everybody wanted out of a hockey player. Skilled, tough, energy, run through walls for his teammates, great guy. And I say that because these teams out of that market, the coaches coach differently in the spring leagues. They let kids play. Yeah, they might practice once in a while. Most don't. But they're not trying to run plays. They're not trying to play really tight lockdown D zone. And what they're doing is when a kid tries to, dipsy-do, or he tries to spin a rab, or he tries to put a puck behind his back for a pass, or does something, the coaches are laughing, or they're cheering him on, or patting him on the head. Whereas if you tried that in a regular season game and you're playing for the Toronto Nationals, or you're playing for the Boston Junior Bruins, or you're playing for the Chicago Mission, you might get sad for a period because the mentality is different. The mentality is not to be creative, not to try things, and not to try to be a kid and enjoy it and have fun with it. The idea is, no, you've got to stay within the constraints. So that's why spring hockey is so important. It's important for that ability to become more creative. It's important for you to be able to network as a parent with coaches and players. And both of my kids on the male and female side, boys and girls side, built connections out of Toronto-based, and Toronto's not the only place. I just know the Toronto market the best as a coach, as a scout, and as a parent. But they built connections that took them in other directions in hockey all the way up until their late teens. So it's extremely important to find that place for you. Now, it might be Boston for some. It might be the Detroit market for some. It might be someplace in Edmonton, or even Calgary. It could be Toronto. Who knows? I'm not placing the exact place you want to play, but that spring hockey is so important. Am I a zealot that says you got to play 12 months of hockey? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Don't believe it. Don't think you need to be doing anything in July and August except for being a kid or having fun. But with that said, the ones that progress do, and they do it a lot. They spend a lot of time on that. So anyway, we got through positioning, we got through planning, we got through preparing. Those are the big things. We talked about spring hockey competitive levels. Hey, look, the first thing, if you're 10 or 11 or 12 years old and you haven't been in one of these major markets for spring hockey, how do you get involved? Google, get online. I can tell you right now, the company Canland does tournaments all the time. Now you think, oh my gosh, Canland for some is perfect. For some, it's the place to start. Others might think, that Canlan is below them or beneath them because they're too good of a player for a Canlan tournament. And I'll tell you this, a lot of great players play in Canlan tournaments because, there's other players there that are great players too. And that's where other people open the door for you to see other opportunities. If you're an American and you go up and play in a Toronto tournament, you're going to get recommendations if you're a good player. Hey, you should really look at this tournament. Oh, you should play with us in this tournament. And it absolutely will happen all the time. Every player that I know that's a high-level player or even a moderately high-level player over the last 15 years that started out with a low-end tournament in Toronto because the families knew, just went up and played, immediately started getting could navigate around the market. Same in the Detroit market, not to the extent of Toronto, though. Toronto really is the epicenter of spring tournaments for anything 14U and below, and it's fun. That doesn't mean you can't go to Montreal. I know that Montreal has a couple nice tournaments. I know that there's other tournaments in other places. I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from doing anything, nor am I saying that the only place to play is Toronto, but it's worth it, okay? Anyway, that's what I had to say about the process. Let me see if anybody's throwing up any question. Okay, we got some comments coming in. Some people are agreeing with it about coaches holding players back for their own purposes. I get that. Throw in any other questions you got. We've got time here. Okay, Mass is saying looking more at 18U AAA. What's more important for a player? How good a team? Okay, look, we're going to get to U18. We're going to have a lot of conversation about U18 later. This was the first session of this marathon. For those of you who don't know that are new to this, this is a marathon of 6 sessions. We're in number 1. We're wrapping up number 1 with some questions right now. But stick around. We're going to go into 14 through 16 right after this. And then we're going to get into U18 starting at 5 o'clock Eastern. And then after U18, we're going to get into girls hockey. And then from there, we'll go into ACHA College Club Hockey at 7. And then at 8 o'clock, it's an open forum, our normal show. So, John, please, if anybody can do me a favor, if John's not still on, if somebody could message John, because I'm kind of busy right now, I sure would appreciate any of the friends of the program. Feel free to throw one out there for him. I sure would appreciate it. Any questions? I couldn't have done that good of a job. There's a lot of people that stayed through. In fact, our audience grew as we went along. But we have to have some questions at all. Anybody? Did it help? Was it helpful? Was I am I a loony? Not the Canadian loony. I'm talking about am I crazy in the way I see the world and how I've gone about this? Let me know what you think. Okay, so here comes one. Mike wants to know, how do you find spring summer opportunities to get on a team for a 16U goalie? I'm going to give you the way that I recommend for everybody. First of all, start by asking around your local organization, your local area. If your son does drop-in hockey, ask around there. If he's during tryouts, ask there. The other thing too is, once again, I'm throwing a brand out, but I'm not advocating or saying that this is the best brand out there. But I would start, if I'm a 16-year goalie, by looking at different organizations that do tournaments out of whatever market you're most interested in. I'm a fan of big hockey market areas. I want to be in markets that have a lot of hockey and have rinks that are up 24/7, 12 months a year, and they get it, and there's a buzz around. I don't want to be in some market that doesn't have that. Now, with that said, I know there's some family vacation tournaments that pop up that are awesome. If you get a chance to do some of the Florida or California tournaments, they're great, but there's a different purpose for those kind of tournaments. It's combining family time and hockey, which is phenomenal. I would say if anybody's in the Midwest or is within 6 or 7, maybe 8 hours, or can fly into the Toronto market, I would Google tournaments in the Toronto market. Over the years, the names changed. They changed, sometimes year to year. But, you've got the Gladiator tournament up there. You've got the McDonald's tournament up there. You've got You've got the Catalan tournaments up there. You've got a lot of different tournaments that run out of there that are major, but then almost every weekend you've got some other ones. And usually what you'll find is once you crack into, you Google, you start talking to somebody at one of these tournament providers, especially as a goalie, there's always, it seems like almost every year, there's a need for a goalie. A team's goalie gets hurt, he gets suspended, he gets the chicken pox, something happens and somebody's looking for a 16U goalie at these tournaments. I would absolutely just start getting my name on list and not worried about trying out yet. Just open the door, start asking questions, call up to the different organizations that run tournaments and say, hey, what do you got for this year? What are you doing? DM me on the side. I'll brainstorm a little bit at the 16U level or what's some good ones. I know that right across the border, Niagara Falls does a pretty good U16 tournament. There's also, at 16, you start getting into that age too. 16 is a little bit different. You might want to stick around for the older group that's coming up later. But 16 also gets you into showcases, and showcases are different than tournaments. And this is important for everybody. A showcase is designed to have players recruited. There's less emphasis when you start getting into showcases on the championship trophy and mom and dad getting pictures with you on the ice with the trophy. When you start getting into showcase age, it's more about who's watching you and who you're playing with and what the coach is doing to help you progress on the showcase team you're playing for. Showcases are played mostly in the Boston market, some are in the Detroit market, but showcases are where if I'm a 16-year-old player, I want to do less tournament play. Tournaments are still fun, but there's a different mindset for a showcase. Showcases, you're trying to get exposure to juniors, you're trying to get exposure to college coaches, and that's why you want to be with those. DM me on that one. I can give you some ideas on showcases, and we're going to also talk about that a little bit later when at the age appropriate, which is the next hour. We'll start getting into some of that showcase talk. Let me get into some of the questions. We've only got a few minutes. I want to see what comes in. So my son Liam plays 12 months of hockey from fall, spring clinics, camps, private skiing lessons. Kale, that's great. Every family's different. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that he's engaged and likes it. Just remember once in a while to smell the roses. No matter how involved they are, and it could be chess, it could be gymnastics, it could be French lessons, it could be the piano. Just make sure there's still time to breathe and do the other things they enjoy too, or other activities. What's better for development, playing up a level or playing for a better program? This is a great question. What's better for a player, to play up a level or to play for a better program? That, Dante, could be the best question of the day, and we're just started in the first hour. I would say the answer to that question is the lawyer that lives in the house, or that I've been instilled with that thought process in me. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm married to one. And what she would say is, it depends. Yes, it depends. Now, let me explain before you think I'm bailing out and not trying to answer this. I'm a firm believer that the majority of quality playing and getting confidence and really working to the utmost of your skills comes with playing at your own age against quality players at your own age, getting a chance to be a leader, getting a chance to actually do things. But you can't say that that's a model that is proven by itself as standalone the only way to do it, because there's just oodles of great players that have gone on to the NHL that have gone just the opposite direction. They've played up 1, even 2 years above themselves. Personally, I think I've seen more success from players moving to better teams at their own age than I have seen from players trying to play up at age, especially when you get to that prepubescent to puberty transition period, where you've got one half the locker room that's already talking about cigars and girls, and you got the other one that's still talking about Santa or the Easter Bunny. So age appropriate to me makes a lot more sense. I'm a firm believer in age appropriate when we've built our teams over the years. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't get a taste of the next level. What I think that the best world is in that situation is to be in an organization that recognizes that you're a great player or you're a really good player and gives you an opportunity to practice or get a couple games with a level above you, but really focus on your team at your age. Now, that to me is the best world. Get a taste, get, maybe 5 or 10 games up at the next level, but at the same time, really focusing on driving in. Practice with that other team. Get your extra ice with being able to practice with the older boys. Get a chance to see what the bigger and stronger kids can do. But really develop your confidence and your creativity at your own age, where you're going to have a little more time and space, as long as it's competitive. Now, if your age group isn't competitive, that changes things, and I think that is obvious on what the decision would be there. But hopefully that helped, Dante. That's a great question. Let's see what we've got here. Are teams chosen more as a result of tryouts or connections? Yes. Connections are important in hockey. There is no doubt about it, Nick, that this is a political sport, but so is the chess team. Okay, if I know the chess coach and I want to play chess and we're buddies, there's a good chance my kid's going to be on that chess team too. If I'm in a dance studio and I'm in ballet, same thing there. If I tend to take lessons from a piano teacher that also picks the concert band for the high school, because she teaches at the high school too, but I do lessons, you don't think that influences the decision? Of course it does. So we're humans. There's interaction. There's politics that are involved. You can't get away from that. So connections are important. It doesn't mean that talent doesn't play into this too, because connections go so far. But if you're talented enough to make a team and you're in that top third, now if you're in the bottom third and there's political connections, when I say political means that you know somebody. Okay, you're friends with a coach. You played with them in high school. You played with them in college, whatever the case may be. Of course there's those connections, and they're always going to be around. You're not going to get away from it, but you acknowledge it. You acknowledge it, and you deal with it as seen fit. Do non-parent coaches work? In my opinion, non-parent coaches sometimes have more political situations and more connection issues because they're hockey people than the parent coach. So it's 6 of one, a half dozen of the other. But yes, you make teams on talent, but yes, having connections does play into this. I hate to say it, but it's part of the game, and that's the politically incorrect part that nobody wants to hear. But it absolutely is part of it. Great question. Thanks, Nick, for that one. Let's see what else. Let me throw this one up. I haven't read this one yet. For my family, it helps knowing we made the right decision for our son family to live apart at his U12, so he had a chance to pursue his dreams. We live 6.5 hours apart. He's playing in the Detroit market, and it certainly opened doors for him. And if you don't believe that comment is real, all you need to do is go up and pull up the Detroit rosters. You can pull up the GTHL rosters too, but not so much the same in the Toronto market as the Detroit market. You pull up the Detroit market rosters, and you're going to see a roster full of players from everywhere, from U13, U14, U15, all the way up through U18. You're going to find rosters with players from all over North America. We played with elite prospects a little earlier. Pull up Bell Tire, pull up Little Caesars, pull up whatever program you want, Honey Baked. You pull up CompuWare. You pull up any of these great iconic names out of the Detroit market, and you're going to find those players come from everywhere. Listen, I owned a junior hockey team. I was the president of the organization. At 16 years old, my son went and played in the Detroit market for 2 years, okay? Because it was the right thing for him to do. Did we want to see our son leave at 15 years old to go play U16 hockey in Detroit? Not really. But it was the right thing. It was the right place for him to go to develop and to move on with the game. And he doesn't look at it as a mistake. He went to the same high school for 2 years. He graduated from actually Plymouth High School in Detroit, played on the lacrosse team, and built a group of friends around him that surround him. So you make the best of the situation. But absolutely was a situation where it worked. So I'm glad to hear that comment. Let's see what else we can get here. Trenton, Michigan's on. Brian, thanks for coming on. I have an 11-year-old son that moved to Squirt AA 1 year early. Now, as the rest of the team is all preparing to move to Pee Wee AA travel team tryouts next year, my son is being told he needs to try out too. We are in a Midwest market and it kind of dropped off. Okay, so that's a dilemma that comes up from time to time. You're a younger player and the whole group leaves and you're left holding the bag. The organization says you can't play. But that's why it's so important to do two things. To know your organization and what they do next year, how they handle you next year, and how they see you as a player developing. Do they want to keep you with that group? Those questions need to be asked ahead of time. Interviewing that coach, if they have a town hall like we were talking about earlier, going to that town hall meeting, knowing what's going on with the organization and doing your homework. And when do you start? We're at the last part of it right now of that window to get all your homework done for next year. But next year and going forward, between Thanksgiving and Christmas, Thanksgiving and New Year's, depending on what holidays you celebrate, jump in early and get your planning done. I hope this session helped. I wish I could get to some of the more questions. I'm going to take one last question because I've got to take one little break before I sign off and then sign back on again here. Let's see here if I can get one more on here. Is it better to be a AAA team with 3 lines or a AA line with 2 lines? Does more ice time matter? That's a great question. Denise, thanks for that question. Is it better to be a AAA team with 3 lines? Well, first of all, 3 lines when you get to college and to juniors doesn't exist. You have 4 lines plus 1 at juniors and at college and, in fact, at pro. So, yes, you get 20-minute periods, but you still have 4 lines plus 1. And you can get lost a little quicker. 3 lines is really very manageable, and I don't really think that 3 lines is insurmountable for your development path. I don't like that word, development, for your path to acquire better skills and to ascend up to the next level. Now, once again, what are you competing against at the AA level? What are you competing against at the AAA level? And you got to look at the bigger picture too. Big picture is, how are those practices being run? Who runs a better practice? Who's basically, which one puts his butt through the ringer in practice? Are there skill sessions working? Sometimes AA means less ice during the week as far as practices. Sometimes it means less games too, depending on the organization. Not all AA organizations are like that way. So I would lean towards always playing at the most competitive level within reason. There's always reasons that don't work out right. My nephew, who now is a USHL coach, when he was at around 12, 13 years old, literally got cut from Little Caesars in the Detroit market. Went to a AA team for one whole season, played AA hockey. He got cut from Honeybaked, I'm sorry. Came back the year after that, went to Little Caesars, won back-to-back national champions, and he became the first-round draft pick in the USHL. I say that, and I do brag on him. He deserves to be bragged on a little bit. But he actually went to a AA team for a whole year because he was one of those kids left holding the bag. When everybody scattered and went different directions, he was like, well, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And so he went to AA hockey, turned it around, came back into AAA hockey, and had a phenomenal run at the end. It can happen. You're not always tied to having to play every single season at the highest team possible, but you can't do that more than once. You're not going to be able to pull off, he couldn't have pulled off 2 years of AA hockey. It had to be 1 year, skate hard, prove himself, move back up into the AAA ranks. Hey, listen, folks, I could go on and on and on with things. I'm so glad we kept such a great audience. The audience grew the whole time they were here. I thank you so much for that. I'm going to sign off for a second. I'm going to come back on in 1 or 2 minutes, and we'll get right back into our next session, which is 14, 15, and 16. So come right back on. I'm going to actually turn off and come back on, and thank you so much.